Hello and welcome to this week's edition of 50 Years Serving the Island, where each week we bring you highlights from the Manx Radio archives as we celebrate 5 decades serving the public in the Isle of Man. In 1968, Manx Radio was transferred into public ownership to become the island's public service broadcaster. This morning, as the Peel Centenary Centre celebrates its 15th anniversary this week, we bring you another opportunity to hear a particular episode of Raise the Curtain, a series going behind the scenes of local performance venues first broadcast in 2009. Here, Alex Brindley uncovers the inner workings of the Peel Centenary Centre.
Hello, I'm Alex Brindley and welcome to the programme that will uncover the hidden secrets of the island's live entertainment venues. Tonight, join me as I raise the curtain on the Peel Centenary Centre. Out on the west coast, Peel is often to be seen by many who live on the east coast as being on its own on the other side of the island. A quiet, sleepy town where there's only the remains of a castle and it's where kippers are smoked. Well, that's certainly true in one respect, but Peel is possibly one of the best examples of something that the Isle of Man seems to have in abundance in comparison with the UK: community spirit. People in Peel are proud of their hometown, or should I say city? They extol the virtues of their home and how you feel part of the town when you live there. Such a comforting feeling is becoming rarer in modern times. It is such community spirit and support which has allowed a quite remarkable project to come to fruition in recent years. The Peel Centenary Centre is the kind of facility that you can imagine at the planning stage a government would look at such a proposal and say it isn't sustainable because there wouldn't be the support to make it viable. Well, there is in Peel. Before we look into how the centre came into being, let me take you to Peel and introduce you to the building itself, where it is and what it is. The Isle of Man Victorian Society's Peter Kelly and I took to the streets out west to look at the building and its surroundings.
Well, we're in Athol Street in Peel, which I think is Athol with 2 L's, and we're immediately opposite the Centenary Chapel itself, which was the Wesleyan Chapel, which is now just the Methodist Chapel. They built this fine classical building with all the arched-headed windows and the dental moulds, the 2 projecting porches with a sort of narthex in between. And then many years later, a much simpler addition was added to it. Ironically, of course, this cuts into the grounds of the Anglican Church, but this was here first. As we look at it now, there is work going on, just started, in the building an extension onto the secondary bit of hall, which is to provide them with more space, and I think there's going to be a sloping entrance, disabled access coming down.
So, just a plain, unexciting church hall in Peel. But when it was still in use as a church hall, was it a success? And if so, how did the building fall into decline? And then how did we get to where we are today? Keith Hewson, who's the chairman of the Peel Centenary Centre, recalls the early history of the building.
Well, it was built in 1875 for the Methodist Church, and the land for it was actually donated by the people of Peel, and the funding was from local donations. So that is the part that we now call the theatre. Was built in 1875, mainly as a Sunday school, but also a concert venue. But by 1913, they'd found that their Sunday school classes were so huge, they were around about 400, that they needed an additional building. So they built on what we now call the Athol Room.
The main room we're in now, the theatre area, has it always had a stage at the front end?
Yes, it has. And when you crawl underneath there, which is a miserable task that the chairman often seems to get, you can see that we've extended it by 4 feet. We brought it forward by 4 feet, but you can see that it's been extended on other occasions because the original sort of valley type footlights are still underneath there.
The building itself, we'll talk in a moment about the alterations that had to be made, but when it came to becoming the Centenary Centre, how did all that come about?
Because of the lack of use of the building and the fact that the Methodist chapel had no use for it, clearly in those circumstances they weren't spending a great deal of money on it, like none. And its condition was getting worse and worse. And the chapel then decided to sell it, and they offered it to Peel Pantaloons as being the only sort of user. But the Pantaloons felt that for one show a year, it wasn't a viable proposition. And they sort of have obviously discussed it, and then they sort of asked a number of people, certainly we three plus three others, if we would do a feasibility study to see if it was feasible to raise the money to buy it, and then also whether it would be a viable sort of proposition to run it as an arts centre. Overall, obviously for a theatre you don't want a lot of windows around the place, so there were a lot of windows to brick up. The walls were running in water, and the plaster, that efflorescence you get where old damp plaster and the salt comes out. So quite a lot of the walls had to be stripped off and replastered. Very hard to remember. We've certainly, since we put it, the roof only lasted us 1 year. Because we knew when we bought it was bad. And then we had a wonderful January storm, and there were slates everywhere. We couldn't get a roof ladder. I can remember Ernie and I came down. It was still blowing hard. I got a rope off my boat. Ernie tied it round his waist and went over the roof on one side, and I came down the other side with the rope round my waist so that we balanced each other out. And we were sticking slates on with mastic stuff.
I know for a start, from my earliest memories of coming here, watching the Peel Pantaloons, that things like toilet facilities weren't up to the scale of a normal theatre, shall we say.
No, it was rather fun in the early days because there were only two toilets in the building. So we used to have a key man, Sam Knight, and Sam would have the key to the toilets in the chapel. And the chapel were very kind and allowed us to use their toilets. So Sam would stand at the front at the interval holding the key up, and everybody had to follow him across the road to the toilet. Sam waited. When the last one had finished, he locked up again and came back, by which time there were 5 other people who'd missed the expedition.
So sadly that little tradition now no longer with us?
No, sadly not really. In addition to a new roof, we've also built a new toilet block.
So basically, poor old Sam's been retired from his duties now.
He has, yes. I'm sure he misses it.
As with many projects, humble beginnings. There are many similarities between the Centenary Centre and the Erin Arts Centre, but also a number of differences. Whereas the Erin Arts Centre started with one man with a vision, Peel Centenary Centre had a group of people with a similar interest and unstoppable enthusiasm who got together to tackle a seemingly impossible scheme of renovating an unwanted building and turning it into an entertainment centre. Another director of the centre and stage manager Ernie Leese recalls the extensive work that was needed.
First thing we had to do was rip out the ceilings above the stage, where we discovered enough room so we could fly scenery up and down.
Oh, so the stage didn't originally have any flies?
No. It had a couple of cloths which folded up, which was put in by the panto. But now we can fly stuff up and all that now. So that had to be done. We had to install all the counterweights for that. Of course, there had to be sound equipment put in, proper lighting put in.
For a start, the most dramatic thing for me, and I know this is quite a recent addition, I'm sat here in the theatre hall. The last time I came to see a show here, I was sat on the level. It was like the what people remember, the Summerland Cinema, the fact that if you had someone sat in front of you, you couldn't see the screen of the stage. We now have this rake seating.
Yes, we got rake seating. It's just been installed now about, 6 months or something like that, if it's that. It's proven to be very popular. Everybody's find it very comfortable. Everybody can see the stage. Brilliant, and it brought this place really from being a church hall now into a proper theatre.
And I have to ask you, because I have Overriding memories of seeing you on the sound and lighting box, which to me always seemed to be precariously slung from the ceiling originally. Do you prefer being at the top of the steps?
No, it was much better that way. It was no excitement no more.
So, things have come a long way technically, and now the building is very well equipped. But how do you start to turn a dream of renovating a shell of a crumbling building into a reality? Because with all the enthusiasm in the world, you can't do much without money. So, help from the community was very important, as the treasurer of the centre, Dave McLean, recalls.
Well, we had no money early on, so it was very, very important. I mean, we were lucky that we got 2 donations which pretty well bought the building. And that sort of obviously gave us a great start, but we had no money at all apart from that. So we were entirely reliant on, particularly at the very beginning, before the government agencies got involved. And from the government agencies, I mean, now they've been very, very good. But back in those days, we had no money, so we were entirely dependent on volunteers to get it off the get it off the stocks. Now things have changed dramatically, as I said, but at that time it was very bad. We got some support very early on. I think we could say that largely from smaller organisations, not particularly from the larger organisations. The Arts Council and the Lottery Trust have been very, very helpful in slightly later years, but early on we got help from the Gough Ritchie Trust, the Farmers Trust, Peel Heritage Trust were very good to us, and the Peel Charity Shop were very supportive. Right at the very beginning, Jonathan Irving made things possible for us because he gave us a guarantee that if the whole project went south, which of course could possibly have done, that he would have bought the building office, which would have sort of at least got us out of debt.
Just looking at the day-to-day running of the centre now, I know full well you yourself are a keen musician and there's a lot of music events put on here. Do you think that there is a thirst for the type of events on a local level that you guys provide?
I really do. I'm absolutely certain of it. I don't think we'd have survived 5 years if there hadn't have been. I think one of the reasons why it has worked is because all the people down at the centre, we all have very, very varied taste. And not only varied taste, but in Keith's case, he's managed he's taken on the unenviable task of promoting classical music, which, though it is something that we absolutely need to do, is, shall we say, a little bit more difficult and challenging to get people into the centre for that sort of thing, whereas Ernie and myself, we tend to do the more popular sort of events, and although I mean it's still hard work, and we're out in Peel, so just the challenge of getting people out from the big city out to us is difficult, but at least we are doing music which has quite a wide appeal.
There is a feeling sometimes that it's difficult to get artists to come to the Isle of Man because we're the little rock in the middle of the Irish Sea that nobody knows about. How difficult was it at the start, and is it still difficult now, to attract people to a small community arts centre like this?
I can assure you that it's not, and I'm sure that Ernie would back me up, that we've got people sort of knocking on our door wanting to play over here.
If you are the uninformed, you may just think that the Centenary Centre is a group of amateurs playing with a mini theatre, dreaming at operating a professional centre. Not a bit of it. For a start, the equipment that the centre has been fitted out with in recent years is second to none.
Most of it, the stuff we've got, we've bought all new now. We have a nice big mixing desk which has 32 channels on it, which is bigger than most desks on the island. And we also have 8 kilowatts of power. When you think that your average hi-fi at home might have 100 watts, something like that, we have 8,000 watts for our front of house system. And that sounds like an awful lot, but we never, because we have so much power at our disposal, we never actually have to use it very much, and that keeps the quality up. We've also got an awful lot of what they call outboard gear there at the side, which is largely to do with things like reverb units and this sort of thing, which enables us to tailor the sound and make it sound better. And we also have a lot of graphic EQs, and most people will be aware of what a graphic EQ is. They'll have a 5-band graphic maybe on their stereo, maybe on their car stereo. We have 31-band stereo, so we have altogether 62-band of graphics, which there again helps the sound good.
Now, up here in the box, it's not just about sound, and I did make a rather disparaging comment before to Ernie about the fact that surely when it comes to lighting you just flick a switch. I presume looking at all this, there's just more than 1 or 2 switches, isn't there, Ernie?
Yeah, again, we've got a couple of 48 channel lighting desks. We'd really like one big one, but one big one is about £6,000 and 2 small ones is only about £300 or £400 a piece. So we've gone for the cheap option because we had no money, but we're now looking at getting a big one. So that'll improve things instead of having to have an octopus working it. A human being will be able to do it. We've also got LED lights in here now, which will change to any colour you want, and they're very economical to run as well. So that's latest stuff in, yeah.
And this box at the back of the auditorium that people see when they walk in there, on average, when a show's on, is it a one-man operation or is it definitely a 2-man operation?
It's usually 2 or 3 at least, yeah, because usually you got one person looking after the sound, one person's looking after the lights, and if you've got a follow spot operator or something like that, then they're there as well. And sometimes you need maybe another sound guy there just monitoring things and all as well. So yeah, it's a busy little spot up there.
You're listening to 50 Years Serving the Island, a series of programmes featuring highlights from Manx Radio's archives as we celebrate 5 decades of serving the public in the Isle of Man. This morning we're revisiting Raise the Curtain, a series going behind the scenes of local performance venues, first broadcast in 2009. Here, Alex Brindley uncovers the inner workings of the Peel Centenary Centre.
As with all entertainment complexes, there is so much to see behind the scenes that gives you a sneak look into the operation of the centre and also its past. So Keith Hewson and Ernie Leese took me on a little tour. Well, we're directly behind the stage itself, and that's the first area I've been into where it's very cramped. I can only just about fit into it. It's like a little mouse hole.
That's the correct word you're looking for.
It's a what?
It's the crossover.
The crossover, that's the official term.
That's the official term, isn't it?
Well, we go down steps now from the stage, and we're entering into, were these the original toilets?
These are the original toilets, just the 2, so they're now the sort of star toilets.
They don't have lights around the mirrors, do they?
Oh, if you want lights around the mirrors, come and look. This is the green room.
With the lights around the mirrors.
Yes, how about that?
That's very impressive, and more to the point, looking around the room. Now this strikes me as definitely something you find in an entertainment venue. It's plastered with photos, posters, and signed photos and posters.
And these are all from acts we've had on in the 5 years. And in fact, we've just about run out of space, so we're going to have to start on the ceiling. But that'll give you an idea of the range of stuff that we've had.
It is quite an impressive range. I mean, you've got things from local artists like Anna Goldsmith, Backdoor Slam. We've got the Bachelors there, and the London Philharmonic Skiffle Orchestra. There's a huge number. I mean, I'd be here all day going through these.
Yes, the Temperance 7 are up there. Pete Allen's Reeds and Rhythm.
And I do notice, though, I'm looking around, Keith, from your appearance in Oliver, I can't see you anywhere. He is! I have to ask, why is there a picture of you hiding behind a curtain with a young lady looking as if you've got no clothes on? Do you care to explain?
We thought it was better hiding behind the curtain. Not that I'm ashamed of my body.
So out of the green room, we'll take a wander back down the corridor, which is normally the corridor that most people see as they enter the building. On the side of the building here, and we walk into an area which, this strikes me more of what you'd use as the community space.
It is, yes. This is the room for yoga, for all sorts of dance. We've had Pilates in here. It's also used for coffee mornings, and some small lectures. Somebody wants a small, intimate sort of room for a lecture.
This was the part of the building that, as you mentioned earlier on, was originally extended into. What sort of condition was this in before you guys started the project?
This was pretty dreadful too. It had a horrible old carpet on the floor. Once upon a time a fitted carpet, I suppose. I was horrified. We came in here. It smelled awful. Absolute desperate smell of damp, and there were snail trails across the carpet. It had a couple of derelict pool tables, a couple of old pianos, and football machine, or whatever they call it, football table thing. 2 out of the 3 walls had to be hacked right back and replastered.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the programme, the community spirit in Peel is extraordinary. And not only would the project not have got off the ground without it, but the centre to this day couldn't operate without it either, especially in the form of an organisation called the Friends of the Centenary Centre. Ron Cooper is the chairman, and he told me about the work they do.
As the whole place is run as a volunteer basis, the Friends provide the cleaners, run the tea bar, the alcoholic bar, if you like.
Now, what sort of work, aside from obviously the cleaning and the staffing of the facility for events, do the Friends do? Are you a fundraising organisation?
We raise money, yes. We have contributed towards the new heating system we've had in. We're getting ready and saving money to put a new kitchen in. Hopefully a proper bar will be installed by the time we've finished our massive alteration out the front. I'll provide the money to stock the bar to start with.
Enough about the centre for a moment. What about the performers? The people who use the centre to entertain others. To start with, let's look back at how the hall was to perform in before the Centenary Centre project got on its feet. Former Manx Radio presenter Ben Hartley was involved heavily in the Peel Pantaloons productions before the transformation of the centre took place, and he took me back to his earliest memories of performing there.
Well, my earliest experience of the Centenary Centre was actually back in 1995 when I first appeared in the Peel Pantomime with the Peel Pantaloons. It was Sinbad the Sailor, and I just didn't want to do it. I just thought, no, going on stage and all that sort of thing isn't for me at all. But Sam Knight, bless him, he got me along there kind of kicking and screaming, and it was sort of from there onwards, and I was addicted to the place. So 1995 was where it all started for me, and I appeared in numerous productions with the Peel Pantaloons, and then one year, perhaps being a bit mad, it was 2002, we decided to put on Santa in Space, that well-known traditional pantomime, but it was actually a great script, and I think in terms of the team at the Centenary Centre, it was the most ambitious they'd been up to that date, because it was the production, people who saw it might remember, where a flying saucer came down and landed on the stage. There was like a spaceship console that exploded. So that was my first experience of actually producing a show, which was amazing, because having a script like that with all those special effects, it was a bit of a treat, I have to say.
The centre is now the spiritual home of the Inspiration Theatre Company. Jules Newton, who is the director of the company, recalls her memories of what the hall has enabled her to do over the years.
My first experience was Santa in Space, going to see it, and sat on the most horrendous plastic chairs and having, can I say this, numb bum afterwards. I'm watching a show, but sitting in the audience thinking, I can do that. I can do that. Oh, no, I had done this. So that was my first experience, and a good experience. Very good.
So where did it go from there then for you?
I got the tickets from a friend who worked with a friend, and I mentioned to him that, you know, I could do this. And he says, well, here's Ben Hartley's number. Auditions are coming up for King Arthur. So I rung Ben out the blue and introduced myself. And he came down with a script where I was working, and, you know, just went from there. I got a part as Sally Simple in King Arthur. I use her a lot, actually. And it just went on from there. It was brilliant.
You yourself have gone from somebody who just turned up at a show in what was just then a hall. How would you have seen you as a performer and also Inspiration having flourished without the Centenary Centre? How has it aided you?
It has aided me personally in the way that I wasn't on stage for a lot of years. I had my family, I had my daughter. My daughter was 8 when I went back on the stage. So I had 10-year break, saw this production, and I just knew it was time to get back on there. And what it did was, I lived in Douglas before this, and what happened was I went into a community, and Peel is a thriving and fantastic community and very close-knit. Although they do let a lot of outsiders in. Hello. And so what happened there was it actually prompted me to make the move from Douglas to Peel and to be a part of that community. So, Alex, it changed my life.
The Centenary Centre hasn't got a grand history. It isn't an architectural marvel, and it hasn't required huge publicity for a massive public appeal to fund major works. It's arguably better than all of that. It started out simply as a hall, and thanks to the dedication of a few and the community support of many, has grown and found a new purpose to fill a gap in the market that not many realised was there, to provide varied entertainment in a professional local venue, something it does admirably, and the west of the island would be a lot poorer without it.
You've been listening to this week's edition of 50 Years Serving the Island. As the Peel Centenary Centre celebrates its 15th anniversary this week, this morning we brought you another opportunity to hear a particular episode of Raise the Curtain, a series going behind the scenes of local performance venues, first broadcast in 2009. In this episode, Alex Brindley uncovered the inner workings of the Peel Centenary Centre. Raise the Curtain was written, produced and presented by Alex Brindley. You'll shortly be able to hear this programme again, along with lots more exclusive content from Manx Radio's archives by going to manxradio.com/portal.